joke that we're going to get her downhill skiing at Ripley this year. I'm
Mhm.
Lily's an avid downhill skier and I'm a ski patroller at Ripley, so we're pretty excited. By the way, Sarah, our field trip for our lab meeting on Thursday, we got to go over to Ripley. So we're just going to meet over at Ripley. I think Lily's going to reach out to you to drive you over.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And all right, another thing that we're going to need to somehow acquire for Sarah is the pair of snowshoes.
Yes.
Because
But
you can get up traverse Mount Ripley with snowshoes as well. Snowshoes work. I mean,
actually,
I wouldn't
I bought a
recommend it,
pair.
but you know, it's possible.
It is like during the like I never got into ski touring because for me growing up, I'd always have to drive 45 minutes, or the biggest hill that we would have would be going into Maine. Like, and for us, it was all chair access. Here, this whole idea, like all my friends were skinning up, and I was like, what are these skin skis? And then I got into that. So I have my downhill skis, but then I have my touring skis. And I love that. It's so relaxing. I get all the fun of downhill and then I skin up. And Ripley, just touring up Ripley or touring up some secret spots, because everyone's really protective of their secret spots in the Keweenaw. But when you get up early in the morning and see that sunrise over the portage, man, it's beautiful at the top of that mountain.
Oh, and my husband likes to backcountry ski. And so backcountry skiing, for just to kind of try to explain it to Sarah. So you are you have skis on you have boots, and then you have attached your boots to skis, and now of course you've parked your car already. And now you're sort of flat skiing until you start trying to work your way up a mountain. And at that point, you can adjust something on the skis that allows it to be almost like having a high heel, which helps you get up the mountain. And at the top of the mountain, you stand on one leg.
I can't do that. No,
you stand on one leg, and then you lift your other leg up and you rip the skin off your ski, because the skin has been adding friction. There's a piece of polymeric stuff with some, I don't know what they are, fish scales or something on the bottom. And then you repeat the process with the other leg. And so I only went once, and I'm like, I'm never doing this again, because at that point I fell into soft snow, and it took me about 45 minutes to try to stand up again. At that point, my goal was just to get back to the car. I just wanted to get back to the car.
Oh.
I think I have the flexibility for it. I think I would pull a hamstring.
I don't know how you get them off then. I mean, what do you sit on? I mean, it's
no, what I do is like I take them off, like I pop them off, and then I just take them off.
But then you're standing, and you can't stand, because at least in Idaho, you would fall through 5 feet of snow. You're
you gotta like pack it down. Like, no, I am not a hardcore backcountry person. I have some former students that want me to go out and do it with them out west this winter, like at the end of season. My friends live in the same duplex complex as one of the Obligator daughters, so I think I might go out to Utah and do some backcountry skiing out there. But yeah, I am very much a rookie, and Nordic skiing and I'm trying really hard, but those things don't have edges.
I know.
And they're terrifying.
All right, now we're going to have a Husky Bites focused on skis in the spring, and we're starting the season with Mount Ripley. So we're going to we'll have lots of opportunity to talk about skis later. So
I heard Danielle Plus is going to be involved.
All right, so I'm going to we're going to start the formal process in just a minute here. So I'm going to go back to sharing screen.
Excellent.
Which is always a process for me. Dang it. And I didn't share the right screen. I will. Come on.
We don't have to be good at it, Janet. We just have to survive, okay?
No, you would think after doing this for so long. Here, let's share that one.
We didn't know what it was before the pandemic. I had never used Zoom, okay? So I think we've come a long ways.
I'm definitely having technical difficulties here. Let's try it one more time. This is what I want to share. Why is it showing me that? Very strange. Okay. I may not be able to share screen, but it's okay because I don't really have anything that important to share, except for the fact that I did want to share some pictures of snow. So I am not going to share screen. I'm just going to begin the show and welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to Husky Bites, where we are going to hear from Dr. Carolyn Duncan and her student, Aslani, did I say that? Sarah Aslani, sorry, I can't read my own writing, who is a PhD student working here at Michigan Tech. My name is Janet Callahan, and my role at Michigan Tech is that I'm Dean of the College of Engineering. And what is Husky Bites? It's a free Zoom webinar where we learn something new Monday evenings. And so this is the next to last show of the season. Our last one will be taking place next week. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I'll say a few more words about that in a minute. I did want to say that we got a bunch of snow over the last few days. And so if I can figure out how to share screen again, I will share some slides showing just some of the winter wonderland. But it's kind of like winter started, like somebody turned the valve and it went from fall to winter. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's been snowing all day. We've kind of had a whiteout all day. And students have put away, most of the students have put away their flip-flops and shorts and are now kind of coming at least wearing, although my boss came to work and to visit me today and he didn't bother to put on a coat. So winter is here and it's beautiful. And so if you have access to a webcam, you can kind of follow winter, and I encourage you to do that.
I think the Ripley snow cam is going right now, so we can watch them making snow. Tentative open date, hopefully, is December 10th, is what I'm hearing from the Hill.
Oh, good. Yep. And they're going to start rolling the trails soon. My husband.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this is going to be good for our, because we're hosting U.S. Nationals for Nordic skiing this year. So hopefully this is right in time and we'll get a lot for our competition trails.
I think we will. I think we'll get a bunch. So without too much further ado, I will show you some pictures of snow later on. What I would like to do at this point is introduce Dr. Duncan. She is a professor in kinesiology and integrative physiology, which is one of our departments here at Michigan Tech. She studies ergonomics, mobility, and postural control, as well as many other things. She's an affiliated faculty member with biomedical engineering, as well as an affiliated faculty member with another one of our departments called cognitive and learning sciences. Carolyn earned her Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology, and you'll have to explain what that is, her Master of Science in Occupational Biomechanics, and then her PhD in Mechanical Engineering. Her first two degrees were at the University of New Brunswick in Canada, and then her terminal degree was at Memorial University of Newfoundland. So she's not a Newfie, she is a Canadian. And then she did a postdoc at University of Waterloo before heading a little bit down south to Virginia Tech for a while, and has been a faculty member here at Michigan Tech since 2018. So Carolyn, I'm going to turn it over to you to continue introducing yourself and to introduce your doctoral student. And I'm so grateful that you're here with us tonight to share what you've been studying.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Let's see if this will work. Fingers crossed. Okay, so we got this. Can I please get a hand up, people? Janet, can you see this, Sarah? Yep. We're good?
Yep.
Well, thank you so much. The child that Jen and I came up with for this was Free Falling. And I keep on thinking of that song in my head, like, you know, I'm free falling. I love my classic music. And thank you so much for inviting me to this talk. It's a pleasure. As you heard, I do have a PhD in mechanical engineering, and I always say that I got the best of both worlds. I have my kinesiology background, so kinesiology is a study of human movement. And originally, entering university, I was a pre-med student, and I discovered that I loved research. I loved being in the labs, and I'll talk more about my whole journey along this way. But first, this is a quick overview of what I'm going to do. Don't need to spend too much time on this. But I'd also like to acknowledge, we tend to acknowledge people at the end of our presentations, but I really think that they do the bulk of the work and they inspire me so much that I wanted to thank all my grad students, my collaborators, and also a big shout out to the people in this group right here. So if you can see my pointer, these were my advisors over the years, and they were so instrumental in shaping me as a researcher and shaping the direction I've taken into this fall's and mobility related research. So I really wanted to give a shout out to them. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them or my students, who they inspire me every day, and they just make coming into the lab such a joyous experience. I love being a professor at Michigan Tech. It's every day is a great day. So where did I come from? Well, Janet did a great job of introducing me. We are here. I'm here. I grew up about 45 minutes from the Maine border. We used to go shopping down there all the time. And I did my first 2 degrees at the University of New Brunswick, which is one of the oldest institutions in Canada. And then I decided that I really fell in love with postural control research, but I wanted to do it on boats. And I was really interested in occupational ergonomics of boats and offshore shipping. So I went over to St. John's, Newfoundland, and did my PhD here. And I worked in industry for a bit and discovered that I missed research, I missed teaching. So I did a postdoc in neuroscience at Toronto Rehab Institute under the supervision of Dr. Bill McElroy and Dr. Avril Mansfield. And in Canada, we have the population of California, so jobs are a bit harder to come by. And I was really looking to start right away and make professor salary, not postdoc salary. And I got offered a job down at Virginia Tech. So go Hokies, loved my time there. Shout out to my collaborators down there. And then I wanted to be closer to home. And I ended up here in Michigan. And I've been happy here ever since. So thank you for coming here. And I just want to give a shout out to people that inspire me. So in my free time, I originally started out playing college ultimate frisbee. Everyone finds that random thing that you do during your PhD. For me, it was playing ultimate frisbee. Since I've came to tech, I got really interested in ski and bike patrol. So I'm a Mount Ripley ski patroller, and I'm a bike patroller at Copper Harbor. I'm also involved with Ladies Weekend up at Copper Harbor. And this little guy here is my best buddy. This is Brady. And Brady might come say hi at some point. He loves attention. So he is a humane, Copper County Humane Society kitty. So shout out to them. They're wonderful people. Oh, there he is. He always likes to say hi. Now, Sarah, can you please introduce yourself? You have a far greater journey than I did.
Yeah, I come from the other side of the globe. I come from Iran. Some of you may know it as Iran. I traveled all the way to Houghton for like 4 months ago. And am I able to go on with the slides?
Here, do you want me to click for you? There.
Yeah. Actually, the first thing I just collected some pictures of my country to get you a little familiar with the nature of my country. Well, the first thing is is one of the things that comes in my mind when I want to introduce my country. It's called Damovan, the highest one of the highest peaks or highest mountains, and it's about like 42 miles in northern of Tehran, which is capital of Iran, and it's about 18,400 feet to 18,600 feet. So and the other thing is that the thing was it's roads, jungle roads somewhere in northern parts of Iran, and the other thing on the left side is something that is really what is essential for collecting resources, water resources in dry seasons, because my country doesn't have so many snows. But this is something in a southern part of Iran, and what is interesting is that our architecture is not it's not by human. It is made naturally. And the other thing is the shore. It's one of the beaches again in the southern part. It's called like red silver shore because of the soil. The soil is red, and that's why you see the water is red like. And the last one is another island. And the last picture that I've taken myself is one of the snowiest days in Iran. That's the most amount of snow I've ever seen in my life. So not comparing to
you beat that today.
Yeah, exactly. And yep, this is me. I graduated from American University. That's my sign in the middle. Actually, this picture is not something that I'm proud of, because now some of my friends are studying there, are arrested or suspended because they've been in protest, because of the political situation in our country. There is a revolution in my country, and there are students that are during protests are getting arrested. That's why, that's not a happy photo, but well, yeah, that is where I come from. Anyway, if I want to introduce me, the first thing is that I love cooking. That's the picture. The first time I cooked cupcakes. I love climbing mountains. Yeah, that's me playing piano for the first time. The first my performance in front of a couple of people's were very stressful day. That picture. And yeah, I used to be a teacher in Italki community. I taught English and French before coming here. And this is a little electronic thing, is the ECG device that I've designed for like 3 years. It's like electrical cardiograph signals, heart signals for some of you who may not know. And the other thing is the device of the other device I designed for my thesis project called TENS device, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, which is used for pain relief. You put it in your skin and it just blocks pain signals. And if you click it a little bit more, yeah, that's my engineering background. And then it's been a year that I've been involved in a neuroscience project. That there are signals from monkey that were taken, and I was in charge and analyzing it, and not only analyzing it but also interpreting those signals to see the biological and neuroscience concept behind it. So that's where I got so obsessed with neuroscience. And the last thing is psychology, that I decided to studying it more seriously. And actually, me and one of my friends, we had a kind of something like a self-project to see the impact of social media on students, on students' education. So that wasn't really top-notch research, but this is something that made me so obsessed with, again, psychology. And having all this, I thought that, yeah, I've got all this 3 background, and that's where I thought, yeah, maybe cognitive and learning sciences position would be a good fit for me. So that's how I got in here. And the picture that inspired me, Dr. Duncan, if you click 2 times again.
Sure.
Yeah, that picture really changed my life. This is the brain, human brain, which some side is mathematical and some side emotional. And this is our brain, not just one part. So I thought maybe studying all this together would have, amazing outcome. So that's it.
Well, Sarah, we're really glad you're here, and yes, and you let me know if you need any foot gear in order to keep you from slipping and falling, because I have a few extra pairs.
We're gonna look after you. We got you covered. She's gonna be ripping it down Husky Bowl by the end of this winter. Okay.
You got it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so much, Janet. So we're here tonight because falls are important to me. This is a passion project. This has been a passion project for me for a long time, because I feel that falls affect people in so many ways. And I also love The Simpsons, and my colleagues love The Simpsons. So I think they actually had a perfect way to...
Good news. Found an extra 75-watt bulb lying around.
So falls happen. Falls happen a lot. Falls can happen anywhere. So our first audience polling question: what percentage of older adults fall annually?
Well, I now consider myself an older adult, and I fall annually. So I'd put it up there at 25%, honestly. That's my answer. Oh, I think I agree with the audience at large.
Oh. Yeah.
So there's 4 choices: less than 1%, 5%, 10%, or 25%, and the audience is overwhelmingly agreeing with what I said.
Okay, so how do I close? I don't use. So yeah, audience, congratulations. I'm pretty sure this number might be higher in Houghton. So 25% of American older adults, so those over the age of 65, fall. And I focus a lot on older adults just because they are at higher risk.
Over the age of 60. I would think.
65 is what we're saying in the CDC. So you're not quite there yet, Janet. So, but yeah, so 1 in 4. And what's crazy is that in the Houghton community, so in the Keweenaw, Houghton area, what's terrifying to me is that 1 in 5 homes is an older adult living by themselves. So that means there's a lot of people that might fall. And that's not to mention all those people that struggle with balance to begin with when they're younger. I want to say that I'm almost a middle-aged adult. This summer I'll be middle-aged. But yeah, 1 in 5 falls results in breaking bones. So an older adult's falling every second. I always figure it's like when I talk to my class, I'm just clicking my finger. Fall, fall, fall. And what's terrifying, that was a Brady knocking over the Zoom lamp. My apologies. That's what I get for having a feline co-host, okay? He wants more attention. In Michigan, 30% of older adults have been injured by a fall. And every 19 minutes in the United States, an older adult dies from a fall-related injury.
All right, now we're terrified.
Yeah, okay, so this is when we're all gonna go out and get grippers, right? And what's really terrifying, in my opinion, is that not only are deaths happening, and there's people in our university community that have died from falls recently in the last couple of years, but I know people that have falls-related head or hip injuries are not likely to return to their previous level of activity. So you're taking away their functional mobility, you're taking away their independence, and that's devastating for people. So this is why this research means so much to me, and why I was so excited when Janet invited me to come talk to this group. So when we talk about falls, there's some terminology that we need to make sure that we're all on the same page about. So the first thing is a slip. And a slip is when you lose traction. And this is going to happen to us all probably in the next few days, if it hasn't happened already. Now, a trip is when you catch your foot on something. Wait for it. Look, she knows who did it.
Where did you get that?
I searched GIF. I Google searched free GIF tripping, and this is what I came up with. GIF and cat.
That cat tripped her on purpose.
And then it meows at her when she points at it. And I thought my co-host was bad. Now, slips and trips can result in a fall. A fall is an unexpected change in vertical height. So it can happen from a slip or trip, or it can happen under different circumstances.
Carolyn.
No animals or small children were harmed in the making of this film. I just find it's a lot easier to discuss this stuff because we know that people fall and we know that people have head injuries. And it's a lot easier to explain this to using animals that are cute and fuzzy and land on their feet as opposed to humans that we just saw don't.
Oh, I needed to laugh. Thank you.
So why do we fall? We're naturally unstable. We're like Bambi's on ice all the time. That's because we're top heavy. 2/3 of our body mass is actually above our knees. So we have all these organs, all these like big pelvic bones and ribs and all those guts in us and these brains that account for like 1/10 of our body weight. Like that's a big chunk of mass right there. And so because of that, we're like a tipping bird. And therefore, we're constantly having to use our brains to develop a way to right us. I always think of it as like, yeah, tipping bird or somebody that's put a pencil on their end and you're trying to keep it up. Well, if that pencil had a brain, that's literally you on your 2 feet. So how do we do this? Well, we call it balance, and that's that continually acting control mechanism that our brains are developing. And if you ever watch a toddler that's learning how to stand for the first time, they will fall thousands of times a day. That's why we give them nice squishy diapers. As they're learning this process. So we have a few types of balance. We have our quiet standing, We have our voluntary movements, which is how we get around, our walking, running. And then we have our reactive balance. And reactive balance we use when we're responding to a loss of balance. And this is usually caused by an external force. So whether it be a slip or a trip, or for me, a random gravity check as I'm like not paying attention and I like don't see those stairs coming up. These are all times where we need to use reactive balance. And what we know about reactive balance is that decreased ability to recover our balance when we lose it means that we're going to fall more often. So this is why I study reactive balance ability. I actually don't study falls themselves. So why are people more likely to fall when they get older? Here's our next audience polling question. Janet, can you bring it up?
Yep.
Or whoever's doing this side of things.
Sue does.
Thank you so much.
All right. And so the question is, what is a
Oh.
risk factor for falling in older adults? And so we have 4 choices: decreased muscle mass, chronic conditions like diabetes, or Parkinson's, decreased vision, or all of the above. And so you get to pull, and oh man, they are not falling for this. They're doing
Yep, they are not. No.
everybody, almost to a person, is doing all of the above.
Yeah. So I'm going to end that poll because the audience is generally always right in these, as I've seen.
We have a very
smart audience.
We have a
really
smart audience. We do.
Yeah, we do have a smart audience. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and this is not going to be depressing. We're getting older because, I mean, getting older means that we just can have more excuses to take naps, right? And eventually we get discounts at restaurants, I've heard. But unfortunately, as our bodies age, we lose muscle mass, we develop chronic conditions, and our vision starts to go. And all these things have a big influence on our balance ability. In fact, when we look at fall risk, even for younger people, there's all these factors that we need to consider. So fall risk is multifaceted. You need to consider behavioral factors, so things that you do. So this could be medication you're taking, lack of exercise, inappropriate footwear, alcohol intake. So if you're going down to the DT or your favorite establishment downtown, but also things like we do, like multitasking. How many people are texting as they walk between buildings? I am queen of that, right? And biological factors, our age, our gender. There's some small differences in race too. Chronic illnesses, physical and cognitive capacities, and also environmental factors. We see the biggest one outside right now. Winter is here. And when I was working in industry, the majority of our falls around our site, and I had like a site that had 20 buildings on it, were in the winter. It was a big, big issue. And we also have socioeconomic factors. People that have lower income, they simply tend not to have the resources needed, whether it be the proper clothing, being able to set up their home properly. So they tend to have high risk of falls. Inadequate housing is a big factor in our society. Lack of social interactions. We lose our functional mobility if we lose those social interactions. And we also, people that have limited access to health services and social services. Vision is something that's not typically covered under Medicare, Medicaid. So unless you have private vision care, you might not have access to proper glasses or care for retinopathies or cataracts that is so necessary so you can see. And also lack of community resources is a big thing. Exercise programs, healthy living initiatives. And this is a big issue, especially in rural places like BUP, where we don't have the resources that a big city would have. And if you want to know more about that, tune into a talk from Dr. Kelly Cam next time she's giving one to the public. She studies community rural health. So we also know that worker populations are also influenced by this, and the same mechanisms are involved in home environments. So originally I started workplace environments. I was working in offshore oil and offshore shipping. And the factors that influence that I was staying there, besides the fact that we're not on a boat, they all transferred over to this area. And what's really crazy is that these factors are so complex that it's really hard to predict. There's no thresholds. And as an engineer, not having a clear threshold drives me bonkers. I spent a long time looking for thresholds, but reality is that we're so multifaceted that it's hard to develop, like, this is when somebody's going to fall every single time. We just can't do that. But luckily for us, there's some approaches that we can use. Not all is lost. So the reason why I study reactive balance is because it's really hard to study actual falls. And reality is that for every time that we fall, there's also a lot of near misses, those times where you've caught yourself. But those near misses are rarely reported. They're rarely reported in industry, and I can guarantee you that they're never reported in real life. So we also know that home and workplaces are highly variable. Every house I've been into around here is different. Every workplace is different. My home tends to change whether I've had time to come up and clean it. So Monday house versus Friday house, totally variable. And all this stuff is very difficult to control. And it's also really hard to capture real falls. It's not like we're going to put video cameras or go around and follow people just hoping that they're going to fall. And we don't want to invade people's privacy. So how do we study this stuff? Well, I study reactive balance. So falls are reactive, and that's a worst case scenario. Balance recovery is that preventive measure. And it helps us understand what people have to do in order to regain their balance so that they don't fall. So if we can figure out what they can do successfully versus what they can't do, we can start seeing what can we do to prevent them from falling. So how do we prevent falling? Well, we have a couple of types of reactive balance. Anyone that has spent time in the UP knows that we all start walking like penguins. And that's what they told me. It's like, when you get here, you're going to walk like a penguin. So you're going to anticipate that ice, Sarah. And you're going to start widening your base of support. And you're going to take these small little steps. And that way we can decrease those shear forces and decrease that friction. So you're going to start walking like a penguin. However, you can't always anticipate. There's going to be distractions. And for all you parents out there, this is a classic distraction that might catch you off guard. So in those cases where you're distracted or you don't see that slippery ice coming, you're going to have to use a recovery mechanism to avoid falling. But sometimes we can't recover our balance. But luckily we have our arms. And if anyone's out there has broken a wrist, I have. Well, congratulations. It probably saved you from having a traumatic brain injury, because we naturally throw our arms out there to dissipate that kinetic energy as we're falling towards that ground. And we would rather break a wrist or a collarbone than break our skulls and have our brains spill out all over. So congratulations, you prevented your gray matter from keeping it in its place. When I broke my wrist a few years ago, I did mountain biking on a green trail in Swedetown. One of my best friends and colleagues called me up and said, congratulations, you prevented a spinal injury. I was like, not helpful right now. But she was right. So we've been studying this for a long time. I'd like to give a shout out to the original people that were studying this. And they were actually some folks from Oregon and a few other schools in the United States. And it was a lot of early female scientists that were studying this stuff. And over the years, this area has grown so much because there's such a demand for it. However, there's still some areas that we don't know much about. So how vision and visual impairments and visual conditions like poor lighting affects balance, we don't know a lot about. And also chronic conditions. Some of them have been studied a lot. Stroke, thanks to the works of Dr. Mansfield up in Toronto, and Parkinson's, thanks to the work being done by stroke and Parkinson's by folks down in Chicago and folks down in Oregon. They've done some great work in those areas. However, things like diabetes and arthritis, back pain and dementia, those are some areas that we still don't know a lot about. And those are really vulnerable populations that we're trying to study more. So some background on me as a researcher. My goal is to improve balance control. And I do this by studying falls and what we call functional mobility, so how we get around. And I want to increase independent living. Because the moment you take away someone's independence, by them losing their ability to move, that's when we have big problems with things like depression. Losing somebody's independence is devastating. So my postdoc advisor once told me that this is why we do this. We want to prevent people from losing their independence. Because you take away that, And I've seen it now because my grandfather is a very proud former college hockey player who took a stroke and then had a serious fall. And now he's in a long-term care facility. And it's really unfortunate because he's a very proud man and he's a 26-year-old trapped in a 94-year-old's body. And he says he's lost everything. So I do this by working a lot with practitioners. I listen to people and see what's going on. What are the needs? And then I use my background in biomechanics, mechanical engineering, and neuroscience to study this. And then what I do is times like this, I use this time to translate this research. So whether it be changing building codes, which is what I'm hoping to do with my lighting research, or improving homes, or making new exercise programs. It's all designed so I can go back into the community and help people so that they have more independence and longer healthy lives. And we do this in my lab. I use biomechanics to study what's going on with the body. And then I use neuroscience to understand those control strategies that are going on at the brain to cause those movements. And what we have is we have this system called a lean and release system. So what this is it's an overhead tether. So we have an overhead harness system, and our participants go into a 5-point harness. That's actually the same type that they use if you are walking along the edge of a building outside, like the CN Tower. This one was actually designed by the same folks who designed the ones for the CN Tower in Canada. And then what we do is we attach them to the wall. And this is what we see is this horizontal tether. And then what we do is get them to lean forward. And my students here are going to release it. It's going to cause the person to stumble forward. And what we do is we keep on increasing the angle that they're leaning until they have to take multiple steps. Because we know that having to take multiple steps to recover your balance is associated with increased fall risk. And right now, the areas that we're looking at in my lab, we just recently completed a study looking at backpacks and how having that additional load, because we always tell people, you should wear a backpack. You should keep things out of your hands so you can grab that handrail. And grabbing that handrail is really important, but we're like, wait a second, what's all that additional load? From purely a physics-based perspective, as an engineer, I was like, that can't be good. So we were studying the influence of backpacks. Then also, I'm really interested in common disorders that people have. So type 2 diabetes is one that I recently received funding from Forage Health Foundation and Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation of Michigan have been generous in funding that research. We're also looking at visual impairments. And this one really shocked me because I thought that had already been studied. Like, I've been blind as a bat since I was 7 years old. And I can guarantee you that when I get up to use the bathroom, I am not putting on my glasses. So if there's something out there, I'm not going to see it. And the other thing that I found shocking was that we know that lighting is a risk factor for falls, but we don't understand the mechanism behind it. So I'm really interested in the mechanism of how lighting conditions affect our balance control. So that's some work that we've been doing for the last couple of years in the lab. Was briefly paused by the pandemic, but we're furthering that research now. So here's an example of the backpack stuff that we did. And of course, I don't have video in the dark because you would just see a black screen. But what we found with that was that for young and healthy people that we collected, and that means between the ages of 20 and 40, that had no other conditions that would affect their balance. Response characteristics were changed, but overall balance recovery ability was not affected. So somehow they were able to adapt their balance. But what does that mean for older adults? What that means to the majority of the population that is not young and healthy. That's what we're starting to study now. But don't fret. Luckily, there is a lot of stuff that we do know, and I want to spend a good portion of this presentation talking about things that we can do at home and in our workplaces to be safer. And I'd like to thank the work of many of my colleagues that have inspired me over the years, because a lot of this is their work.
Well, and just to give you a time check, because I know you've got a lot to cover left, we're at 6:35. Perfect.
So what, 10 minutes?
It depends upon how much time you want to leave for Q&A. And I think we're going to probably, I'm anticipating that this is running long. So we'll stop our recording at 7 and
Okay.
we'll stay on longer for Q&A if it's okay with you, Carolyn, but keep
Sounds
going.
great to me.
This is fascinating and I'm very interested in hearing what you say.
Really appreciate it. So one of the questions I get asked most as a researcher is, can we train better balance? And from a neuro control perspective and a motor learning perspective, we've been able to use training to help healthy adults in clinical populations, like people that have had strokes, get better balance that decreases their fall risk. However, this takes hundreds of repetitions and to retrain these previously learned responses. So take somebody that has a stroke, chances are they had really good balance beforehand. And unfortunately, the stroke has caused the death in their brain to a piece of their brain that they have to relearn. But what's really cool about the brain is that it can remodel. It's smart. And you can actually retrain it to do stuff. Likewise, for chronic conditions, say like Parkinson's, we're not going to be able to stop that. There's some amazing research groups that are trying to develop some tools and some drug therapies to cure Parkinson's. However, what we know is that exercise can be used. And I'd like to give a shout out to my colleague, Dr. Gweltney, who is with Aspires and the CMU DPT program, physical therapy program, who does exercise programming for people with Parkinson's in our community. And we're trying to expand this into upper areas like diabetes. But this oftentimes requires specialized equipment and expertise. And we currently don't know if it's appropriate for all clinical populations. So different populations might need different things. However, this is what we are studying. And in the new year, I'll be launching a study, a randomized control study that is looking at the effectiveness of Tai Chi for diabetes and fall risk. Thank you to Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation of Michigan. So what is the number one cause of falls in the home? Audience, this is your turn. This is a tricky one.
All right, and so we've got 4 choices: slippery floors, clutter, poor lighting, or stairs. And the question is, what is the number one cause of falls? For me, I'm going to choose poor lighting. That's what I'm going to choose. The audience is choosing clutter.
Clutter, interesting.
My falls, it's the last step of stairs. And what I think is, I think that I've taken my last step and then I take a little bit of a wider last step and then I catch my foot on the step and then I fall, right? So that last step, so what I've done in my house, because I don't have any landing illumination, I string a Christmas light that I just leave up year round. And so I plug it in and that way it gives me enough light of the stairs themselves that I can see that last step.
Well, you know what? Our audience is right again. We have a smart audience here.
And they chose clutter.
They chose clutter. So yeah, all of these are major risk factors. And I wasn't sure if I was leading people down a different direction because I study lighting. But clutter is a big one. People, like even my home right now, based on where the internet is, I have a extension cord that I've had to string across a room because I'm in an old mining house in Dollar Bay where there's never enough electrical sockets. And yeah, so clutter becomes a big factor. And people leaving stuff around, parents, you have children. I have a fur child whose toys are everywhere. These are all factors. Also, building designs are a big issue. And I'm going to get into that in a second. So yeah, it increases our risk of trips. And in some cases slips, but most often trips because it's all those cords, those rugs, those area rugs that are over that box of old DVDs you haven't touched in years and probably don't even have a DVD player for anymore. All that random stuff that you have floating around. All that clutter makes it really unpredictable, especially when it's moving around. If you have roommates, if you have children. And it also prevents us from moving effectively. So if we're having to walk over things, we can't use our optimal movement patterns. And then if we throw in a condition like poor lighting, it's just going to make things worse. And with that, it's also affecting our ability to perform ideal balance recovery strategies. And this is something I'm going to be looking at likely for part of Sarah's research. Now, a word on winter. And honestly, I wasn't sure how much I was going to go into this, and I added a slide this morning as I saw this snow coming down. Things that we don't consider. We talk about slipperiness all the time. What we don't consider, though, is the fact that we are all bundled up in these giant coats and snow pants, which Sarah, you've got your head around what snow pants are now? This was a novelty for her. Pants that go over the pants. And what happens with these snow pants? So all this bulky clothing actually decreases our range of motion, decreases our ability to produce the optimal forces, and affects our movement characteristics. As you've seen, we're all walking like this and taking these big, tiny steps. And we know that not only, as my friend told me, she's from Wisconsin, and she's like, "Oh, are you skiing today?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "But you have tons of snow." She lives in Georgia now. I was like, "Yeah, but it's not, it's lake effect snow. It's not good snow." And she's like, "You're a snow snot." So anyone who lives up here knows that not only is there ice and snow, but there's different types of ice and snow, and they have different characteristics. And that affects our movement too. It's not just whether it's a good day to go out and cross country ski and which wax we're using on our skis. And also the cold affects us. It makes us shiver, it makes us conserve energy, but also we start to lose feeling in our feet if we're not careful. And especially if you have a pre-existing condition that affects it, say you have Raynaud's syndrome, or you have a peripheral neuropathy from, say, diabetes, it's going to really affect how your feet interact with that environment. So you might not be able to detect the environment in the same way. So my number one tip for winter walking is, one, get proper boots. And I love my traction devices, especially when walking up and down the hill. It's essential. And what these do is they go just over your shoes, and I recommend them to all my international students that have or students from the South that have never seen snow. The big thing with these is that we need to take them off when we go inside. So as soon as we get into the grocery store, take them off, or else it's like walking on ball bearings. Then also around your home, be aware of those puddles of water that you track in by the steps, by the entryways. I've seen so many falls, and that's often a common place that we have slips and falls in our buildings, even on campus. Now, I also get asked about picking out footwear. And truth be told, is that you want, one, avoid hard plastic soles or rocker bottoms. But also, we also want to have rubber soles with horizontal grooves, which would make them better. So if you have a lot of the major brands, that's what they do anyways. But what's really interesting is that some researchers in Toronto showed that slip resistance cannot be determined by simply looking at the sole. Metal cleats work well on ice. And for outdoor icy surfaces, I recommend going to this ratemytreads.com. This is a research group out of Toronto, and they've been testing all kinds of, and they've tested hundreds upon hundreds of commercially available winter boots to see how effective they work on ice. So what they do is they have this room, and it's filled with ice, and they put icy snow down, and they get people to walk up and down it to see how high of an angle can you actually walk in this. So go onto their website. They probably have all the common brands that we have at our local stores. And it's a free service. Now, stairs are also a big one. I live in a mining house. And if any of you live in mining houses, one, I think people were a lot shorter when they built these stairs. And the slope on these stairs is terrifying. And they're also, yeah, like that. And crazy narrow. Like, I have a size 10 woman's foot, and it does not fully fit on these stairs. So I'm like gripping my toes around. And what was interesting is that the building codes in Canada and the United States, the minimum used to be around 210 millimeters. I don't know what that is in American units. My apologies. And they found that people were 4 times more likely to fall. But what they did discover was that as you increase that size of the stair, fall risk changes, and you're less likely to fall. So now the International Building Code and the one in the United States is a lot larger for all new homes. Unfortunately, they're not going to give you money to go in and change your house.
Right.
But for all new home dwellings, or if you're doing an upgrade, I know it's really hard to upgrade a staircase, but this is one area that can help. Also, changing the texture and the color of those stairs so you can see those edges is a big one. I know someone who died from breaking their neck from not detecting in the middle of the night one of those single stair drops.
My attic stairs are so steep that I actually go up them on my, I use my hands. When I'm going up, I use my hands to help me. And I'm using my feet like a penguin. And then on the way down, I'm holding the railing with one hand and I'm going very slowly all the way down, just as carefully as I can.
So Brady here says that you should be using all 4 feet. I warned you, he likes to make appearances. He thinks Zoom meetings are for him.
That's me going down my attic stairs. That is me.
So surface texture for handrails are a big deal. So basically the goal of a handrail is that you want to be able to grip it on all sides. And I'd like to thank 2 of my colleagues, Vicky Commissar, who's a really close colleague and friend of mine, and Phil Gazine out of Newfoundland and Toronto. And they've been researching this stuff with Alison Novak for a while. And what they found is that you want to be able to grip it so your whole hand can grip it. So think of a big cylinder. And so that way you can push down on it, you can pull out on it, you can pull up on it. So all these fancy design handrails, which is really interesting in this picture I found, this is a fancy design. She can't get her whole hand around that. So if she had to pull up, she wouldn't be able to. This one, on the other hand, she can get her full nice power grip on it. And they're also saying that higher is better. So around 42 inches is where they should be installed. And you should be able to have contact with this on any surface. And if you're having balance problems, these should be everywhere in your house, quite honestly. Like, I'm a firm believer. I have almost fallen or grabbed the shower curtain or the towel rack way too many times. I think that bathroom handrails in the shower and by the toilet are not just for old people. They should be for everyone. And these things are easy to install. They're quite affordable now. And what's really cool is that I was helping a friend install a handrail in their home down to a treacherous basement that was terrifying to go down. And the common ones at what's the lumber store in town here? Lumber 41 or
yeah, Lumber 41, and then there's the one over in Hancock.
Yes. Yeah, anyways, both those
there's
stores,
several.
if you ask them for handrail dowels, they're actually the code. So you don't even have to find something fancy, they have them there. So I was really, really happy about that.
Very good.
So final slide is what's next for Irvis. Well, I'm excited about the work that this lab is doing. Thankfully, we're on like what seems to be the tail end of this pandemic, and we're excited to get moving. And thanks to grants like our pandemic relief grant through the VPR's office, we've been able to push some of this research forward that initially got delayed and move on to more exciting projects. So I'm really interested in what happens when not only are you falling in the dark, but how often are we falling in a room where everything is perfect? You know, if your house was recently cleaned, I don't know who would do that, but if you find out who could clean that for me, that would be great. And everything's in place. That's not real life. So I'm interested to see what happens when there is clutter on the floor. Things are out of place. Yep. Also, vision disorders. Most people, a huge majority of our population struggles to get proper vision care, either due from the cost of it or because we simply, in rural places like this, we don't have enough vision specialists, especially for things beyond just our basic vision care. Also, middle-aged adults is a group that has not been looked at that much. There's a lot of funding for older, so 65 and above. And because students tend to fall in the 20 to 40 range, we have a lot of research on them. But we have the 40 to 65 range says to be a forgotten population.
Interesting.
Yeah, we know that things are going wrong. You know, we're starting to lose our balance abilities during that time period, but we don't know to what extent. So I'm really interested in studying that population. I currently have a study going on with that population involving lighting conditions and also clinical populations.
So with this being your last slide, I wonder if you or Sarah or both of you might explain kind of what Sarah is going to be studying.
Sure. Sarah, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. The thing that we've been talking, as Dr. Duncan said, yeah, we want to see the balance control in darkness and see what is the effect of vision on balance control, and also not only vision but also maybe the because vision also has effect on cognition. So the the interface between the kinesiology, I mean balance control, and also the cognitive effect of that of darkness with something that I will study during my PhD degrees.
Yeah, so Sarah, when she initially contacted us, she was really interested in dementia. So this is our dream, would be to look at dementia and other cognitive disorders, because dementia is so devastating. I recently lost one of my good friends from high school, lost her mother to dementia, and she was 60 years old. So we're really interested in, myself and Dr. Kevin Schwarfa, we're really interested in studying dementia and the interaction between cognitive disorders and vision, because these are two things that are affecting a huge portion of our population. So I guarantee you that if you were to come chat with Sarah in another year, she's going to have some great ideas and some nice pilot data on what's going on with these populations.
Well, and so I think where we are in the talk is that we're normally kind of ready for a half an hour of questions, and
Yeah.
given the time that we're already at 6:51, what I'm not going to do is cut short the questions. So I want to make sure people have a chance to ask questions. But what I am going to do is just thank the audience and thank you both for your time this evening. And I think the official recording, Sue, you go ahead and stop that on the hour at the end of a question. But thank you everybody for joining us. And so that means you can leave at will, but we're going to go ahead and start with the Q&A. And I can see that there's about 28 questions. So you
That's
guys
awesome.
click on the Q&A button, and each of you can just start calling out a question you want to answer. And of course, read them out loud, and click choose to answer, and then read them out loud, and then answer the question.
So I would like to answer one thing. Yes, Becky Castle, go Hokies. Yes, go Hokies, the most mediocre football team in the ACC. But yes, go Hokies. Let's see. Sarah, pick a question.
Yeah, I guess none of them was from me. Oh, there's something that's Ronald says, there are ski areas in Iran. Yeah, there are some of the artificial ski areas, but they're so expensive because there are not always so many bunch of snows there. So
yeah, and our official snowfall is in the 5 to 8 inches in Houghton County, and that is true at my house too. And then we got some comments about the cats and things. So you don't have to answer these in order.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to answer this. Ask this one from Dean. In your reviews of conditions for a fall, have you considered the look of stairs, specifically when the stairs all look the same, so the actual steps are not visible due to the pattern optics?
So really good question. Thank you, Dean. Yeah. Thank you, Dean. There has been some stuff done on that. So there's some folks out of the University of Pittsburgh and also some folks out of Toronto that have started looking at that with respect to falls. And we know that being able to detect that edge is so important. And if you look at my stairs here in this house, they all have the same edge. If you look at the stairs in the SDC, they all look like checkerboard pattern. And this is a big issue. So having something that's a different texture, different color is really, really important. Now, where I would like to take this work one step further is what happens if you have a vision condition where you have decreased contrast sensitivity? What do you need? What is the ideal contrast between that stair edge and the next stair that we would need in order to have proper balance? Is it different in color? Is it different like in pattern? What is ideal for to keep our home safe?
I don't know. There's a lot of very serious questions going on here. So Bill comments, class of 59, his wife of 60 years fell walking on gravel on the blacktop 1 year ago. So this is a wife that they've been married to for 60 years. So she probably was in her 80s at that point. And crushed her right shoulder. The doctor refused to operate because there was only a 25% chance of success. She was 83. And I'm so sorry to hear that, Bill. That's a.
I'm so sorry. I really wish that we didn't have to have these conversations, and this was not. I would far rather be talking about something like mountain biking or disc golf right now, but it's these stories that make me want to get back into the lab early tomorrow morning so we can start doing more research and find more ways, because there's no reason that anyone should be dying from a fall, quite honestly. And until that stops, I'm going to keep on doing research.
Well, and here's a tip from Jim. I found by going downstairs backwards, I had better control and it was easier on my knees. And that's how I remember my mother teaching my younger sisters how to go down the stairs, is backwards, to crawl down them. All right, you guys feel free to pick a question.
Something interesting, Becky said that, has there been a connection between cell phone use and falling? I guess that's the one with multitasking and falling. I guess that's going to be a great area to take a look at, Dr. Duncan, right?
Also,
there's got to be a connection.
Yeah. Honestly, it's a distraction.
Yeah, this is multitasking.
Also, a shout out to Vicky Commissar, my colleague. She's on here, and she wanted to say that 8 inches is the translation for stair width. She did the conversion for us when we were talking about stair widths.
Well, and it's also the amount of snow we got here.
Yeah.
I thought she was answering that.
Yeah. Vicky, it's not 8 inches. Someday you'll come visit and you'll realize that. How do we determine the best grab bar placement in the bathroom? I do not know, Tom. I don't know that research off the top of my head. My colleague Alison Novak has dealt with that a lot. So please feel free to reach out to me and I can send you some resources on that.
I'm just going to share an anecdote. I was working with my son. It was a back unlit, kind of spirally downward staircase from a very old apartment. I was holding the wall, being very careful, step by step by step, all the way down. And then I thought I had taken the last step, and I took a bigger step because I thought I'd taken the last step, and I was one more step. And it's that last step for me. Honestly, I've almost fall, and I didn't fall. I mean, I was able to catch myself against the wall, but I have a call to action to all of us out there who can do more to help prevent falls. Like I said, Christmas lights around your, if you have a banister and you can wrap them, I wrap them against the floor, and they're up there year long. And my husband makes fun of me, but think of things you can do to prevent falls in your house and then do them. I really encourage you to do that.
Yeah. Peter has a question about peripheral neuropathy. Thank you, Peter, for this. I mean, the question is, what do about those who have peripheral neuropathy? This is a killer for falls, as you can't feel your feet, so you lose your balance easily. If I close my eyes, I will probably fall in 15 seconds. I have now learned to put my arm out and steady it against the wall or stair. Yeah, this is devastating, Peter. Like, this is one of the things I'm really interested in studying, because truth be told, is that we don't know a lot about it. But what I can recommend is, anecdotally and stuff that makes sense from the literature, is that you're taking those right steps. Whenever we can have more than one point of contact, so being able to grab that handrail, even light touch against a wall or a surface that's stable, is a big help. Having that, because what that does is that it widens what we call our base of support. So being able to widen that is so important. So the bigger that we can increase that range where our center of gravity can move, the more range that we have that keeps us stable. So think about, getting into our big sumo pose, but if we can grab something, we can apply a torque to that, we can pull up on it, we can touch it. All these things are going to help us. Yeah. And they're showing that even a light touch against the wall can help you get that extra balance. I wish we had a better solution. I wish that there was ways.
Well, so here's a great question from Nancy. What are some things we can do every day to improve our balance? For instance, I put my socks on and off while standing up to practice balance. I'm really impressed you can do that, Nancy, but
I can't do that. I can't stand on one foot. And I think I work in an exercise department, right? We study human movement. Exercise is a big thing. So they say that movement is medicine, motion is lotion, right? So it's one of these things where the more that even the most mundane things that we can do to work on our balance. So getting out for our walks, being active, eating properly, these are all going to help us. So any activities that you can do, even things like Tai Chi and just basic stuff online, like get up,